Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Proverbs chapter 10. Now, chapter 10, up until this point, Solomon has been giving some very sound advice, mostly, but really on two kind of thoughts. One thought was to warn uh, men from the path of adultery. I mean, he spent a lot of time on the dangers of falling for an adulterous woman. Uh, and then let me just say this, that because of the culture, women are not mentioned as often as they should. That, and I can't give you an explanation as to why. However, we will see as we have that, for example, in one of the statements in chapter 9, that he said, follow the commandments of the father and the teachings of the mother. When he talks about not falling for an adulterous woman, for example, I'm thinking about David and Bathsheba. David fell in adultery with Bathsheba. Now, was Bathsheba the bad person, the villain? Um, and there's nothing to indicate. In other words, when we're talking about adulterous affair, she was just as guilty as David. David was just as guilty as her. Okay, David had more responsibility because he was the king. So what I'm saying is the advice, excuse me, the advice to not fall into adultery goes for both male and female. And in our culture, sometimes the mindset of men are dogs, right? Men are dogs, men are dogs. It's interesting here in Proverbs that Solomon basically says, well, the women are the ones that are dogs, the women are the villains. Don't fall for the adulterous woman, okay? And the reality is, in terms of truth, neither male or female should fall into an adulterous affair. So that's the first thought. The second thought was the value of wisdom. He kind of sets up what the value of wisdom is. That wisdom, remember, wisdom was present with God at the foundations of the world, the creation of the world. In other words, God possessed wisdom. God, when he created, it was through wisdom that he so perfectly planned it out. So as we get into chapter 10, what we're going to see here is just a series of Proverbs themselves. Now, if you remember, I said Proverbs is the only book where you can take each verse, or you could say this, Proverbs. So a Proverbs may be a verse, a Proverbs may be a couple of verses, maybe a few verses. But really, Proverbs is the only book where, as you read it, you can single out each proverb as its own separate unit. I say that because, unfortunately, when people create and fabricate and craft their theologies, they do so with isolating verses of Scripture. Okay, isolating verses of Scripture instead of reading the text as a whole. In other words, the Bible, for the most part, is written in a narrative form. So you do it in justice. And by the way, this is any theology. Any theology. Denominations are founded and crafted and created based upon men who have crafted theologies. And the way you do that is take a verse from here, a verse from there that fits your narrative. Now, I'm saying all of that because Proverbs is really the only book that has a series of individual proverbs. So, and as we go through chapter 10, you will see that one proverb is another thing, and then he goes on. There's no necessarily connecting thought. You kind of hear one of the, I think kind of, it's funny that if you, you hear people say, well, how do you interpret the Bible? Well, you go to the verse above and then you go to the verse beneath. I don't know who came up with that. It's kind of one of the silliest arguments you could ever make. But a lot of people believe that. Well, Proverbs do, and in a sense, is going to be laid out in such a way is that one proverb is not necessarily connected to another. They're each individual thoughts. All right, so let's get into it. Proverbs chapter 10. Proverbs chapter 10. Let me see here, make sure I have. I'm going to change over back to my normal Holman Christian Standard Bible. I love that translation. This is the English translation here. That is, where are you at? Here we go. All right. I forget, for some reason, this the English Standard is the common, is a common base for this. I like this. I like this. It's a Bible app on, well, desktop computer here that you're looking at. But anyway, Solomon 10 verse 1 says Solomon's Proverbs. Okay, now the Bible tells us Solomon comprised over 1,000 proverbs. I don't even know if we have 1,000 here. I knew it at one time how many proverbs the book of Proverbs has. So I don't even think it's 1,000 proverbs. So it's a very tiny portion that we're getting here. All right, here we go. It says, a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son heartache to his mother. Now, when I said is that, so that's the Proverbs. If you were sitting in Solomon's presence, he might just spout that out. Now, verse 2, ill-gotten gains do not profit anyone, but righteousness rescues from death. So right here, and only thing I want to just emphasize is, these are two different thoughts, two different proverbs, okay? One really has nothing to do with the other. Also keep this in mind that these are also generically speaking. In other words, does it mean that this happens all the time in every situation to every single person? Absolutely not. Okay. Verse 3 says, the Lord will not let the righteous go hungry, but he denies the wicked what they crave. Now that's, of course, again, how do you take this in a general sense? But I would also say this, that no matter how much fame, how much money, you would never get in a sense what you crave. I think that's verse 4. Idle hands make one poor, but diligent hands bring riches. Okay. And you're going to see this contrast. Notice the contrast. Idle hands versus diligent hands. Verse 5, the son who gathers during summer is prudent. The son who sleeps during harvest is disgraceful. Again, very true. Now, a lot of these are self-explanatory as well, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to just go into details. I mean, explaining them, because they're really self-explanatory. We would just do wise to heed them. We do wise to add them to our thought. Verse 6, blessings are upon the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The remembrance of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. A wise in heart accepts commands, but foolish lips will be destroyed. The one who lives with integrity lives securely. The one who perverts his way will be found out. The sly wink of an eye causes grief, and foolish lips will be destroyed. The mouth of the righteous is the fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up conflicts, but love covers all offense. Now again, these are statements in general. So when he says love covers all offenses for the good, you have to put that in. Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all offenses. So the contrast here is one that if you can avoid conflicts, in some respects, you're not going to cover up offenses. They need to be exposed. So again, I'm saying, as this statement applies, it applies, but it doesn't apply in every situation to everybody. Verse 13. Wisdom is found on the lips of the discerning, but a rod is for the back of the one who lacks sense. The wise stores up knowledge, but the mouth of the fools hastens destruction. A rich man's wealth is his fortified city. The poverty of the poor is their destruction. The labor of the righteous leads to life. The activity of the wicked leads to sin. The one who follows instructions is on the path of life. The one who rejects correction goes astray. Verse 18. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. So true. So true. Slander, by the way, is one of the easiest things. Slander, gossip. You think of how many television shows today are one of the most popular ways you want to get, if you want to get views, audiences, slander and gossip. Verse 19. Where there are many words, sin is unavoidable, but the one who controls his lips is wise. So very true. The more you talk, the more you're going to sin. You know, first, I just think about that. The more you talk, notice he said sin is unavoidable. So true, so true. Verse 20, the tongue of the righteous is pure silver. The heart of the wicked is of little value. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for a lack of sense. The Lord's blessings enriches, and struggle adds nothing to it. As shameful conduct is pleasure for a fool, so wisdom is for a man of understanding. As I told you, when you think about, when you know that you kind of have operated in wisdom, it is a delight for you. Notice what he says though, shameful conduct is pleasure for a fool. Now you remember I said that a fool is one who doesn't believe God. A fool is somebody who doesn't obey God. And just think about in the news of all the foolishness act. But you think about how, like when you think about how these kids that are running rampant in the downtown areas, it's a pleasure to them. Why? They're fools. Okay, verse 24. What the wicked dreads will come to him, but what the righteous desires will be given to them. When the whirlwind passes, the wicked are no more, but the righteous are secure forever. Like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so a slacker to one who send him on an errand. Now we're going to see this kind of coming up again. Well, when you have people that, employees, for example, are people that's tasked to do something for you. When they are a slacker, notice what he says. It's like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes. Verse 27, the fear of the Lord prolongs life, but the years of the wicked are cut short. The hope of the righteous is joy, but the expectation of the wicked comes to nothing. The way of the Lord is the stronghold for the honorable, but destruction awaits the malicious. Malicious. Okay. Verse 30. The righteous will never be shaken, but the wicked will not remain on the earth. The mouth of the righteous produces wisdom, but a perverse tongue will be cut out. The lips of the righteous know what is appropriate, but the mouth of the wicked only what is perverse. I'm going to go on to chapter 11. Dishonest scales are detestable to the Lord, but an accurate rate is just a lie. Now, when it talks about dishonest sale, just think about going to the supermarket. Just think about buying gas. There have been many times where gas owners, for example, have been accused of tipping the scales. In other words, if it's $3 a gallon, in reality, you're not getting the whole 3 gallons. Or when you go to the store and you buy fruit, $3.99 a pound, well, sometimes they tip the scale. All right. He says that is detestable to the Lord. Verse 2. When pride comes, disgrace follows, but with humility comes wisdom. One of the greatest things you can learn right here. Pride will always produce disgrace. But learning to be humble, he says, also will come with it wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the perversity of the treacherous destroys them. Wealth is not profitable on the day of wrath, but righteousness rescues from death. Now that is true. Look at how many people have been killed when something happens that is a wrath. Think about the people who get, think about this. Think about mass shooters as an example. Mass shooters. They're full of wrath. They're crazy. But what does that have to do if they go into a bank? If they go into a law firm or whatever? Verse 5, the righteousness of the blameless clears his path, but the wicked person falls because of his wickedness. The righteousness of the upright rescues them, but the treacherous are trapped by their own desires. When a wicked man dies, his expectation comes to nothing. And hope placed in wealth vanishes. Okay, so keep this in mind. He's talking about hope and expectations, not so much as the fact of having wealth. But notice he said it comes to nothing. Verse 8, the righteous one is rescued from trouble. In his place the wicked one goes in. With his mouth the ungodly destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge the righteous are rescued. And there's so many applications to this. Excuse me. I cannot tell you how this is true by always operating in knowledge, especially around the wicked. Notice he says right here, the mouth of the ungodly destroys his neighbor. Verse 10. Now the word neighbor here should not only be considered the person who lived next door to you, but for example, your neighbor could be your fellow citizen. Verse 10. When the righteous thrive, a city rejoices. And when the wicked die, there is a joyful shouting. Now, this here is a very interesting statement. You think about what I'm trying to be careful here, because let me just put it this way. When a fool is in office and run things, there is much well, let me compare the two, verse 10 and 11. So he says, when the righteous thrive, a city rejoices, and when the wicked dies, there is a joyful shouting. A city is built up by the blessings of the upright, but is torn down by the mouth of the wicked. I cannot help but to compare this to the administrations of our country, the presidents. When you think about when one president got elected, a week after his inauguration, there was a worldwide, it was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, that all over the world women protested. And I'm thinking to myself, what does France have to do, or Germany have to do, or have to do with the president being elected here in America? But if you think about right now, if the government of Russia was to change, the people would rejoice. That's what he's talking about. You think about you think about Russia, China, North Korea. You think about just those three nations alone. There's many more where wicked people are ruling. Just think about that. And then think about when people change over from those governments. There was a time, remember, I believe it was around 1989, 90, when the breakup of the Soviet Union, when the breakdown of the Berlin Wall. People rejoice when righteousness reigns. When wicked people run the place, it is always destruction. Okay, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And don't again, I'll see you in the next study.